Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and we have been, over the course of the pandemic, speaking about work from home accommodations under federal, state, and local laws in various situations, and have gone a long ways in pushing the idea that now that it's been proven you can work from home, as it has been by your time working from home, right? Things went fairly well in most cases, and it's certainly different for businesses where things did not go well, right? I agree. We'll set that aside. That's a conversation. Everything is a conversation. Everything is detail oriented. Everything is going to be specific to the actual situation. We are speaking generalities, but where work from home went well and where you have a disability that requires you to work from home as an accommodation, I think now more than ever, it is difficult for employers to argue, oh, well, we can't do that. It's not reasonable, right? Because it is a reasonability standard for whether or not an employer grants an accommodation, right? So it's more difficult now for an employer to say, oh, we don't think it's reasonable for you to work from home. We couldn't accommodate that. You just did for 9 to 18 months. You just did. And it went well. So yes, it is reasonable, right? It's a difficult thing for an employer to fight, in my opinion. Now, that was true certainly during the pandemic, and then the vaccines came out, right? And when the vaccines came out, we started to say, okay, so if you're vaccinated, then the situation where you might qualify for work from home would be if you have a medical disability, and this is just talking about disabilities. We're leaving the religious issues aside. You might qualify for work from home. Now the vaccine is available if, one, you have a disability that makes you incapable of taking the vaccine, or two, you have a disability that makes the vaccine ineffective for you, or three, and this one's a bit of a long shot, you have a disability that makes the COVID disease so dangerous for you that even with a vaccine, it's not reasonable to ask you to leave your quarantine, your safe quarantine where you're not being exposed to the disease, because even the small sliver of a chance that you could get COVID after the vaccine is too great a risk for you. And you hear what I said there, because that was the old logic, right? That was the pre-Delta variant logic. Now we've got a bit of a situation on our hands. We have the Delta coming in, right? And not all of the vaccines are created equal with the Delta variant. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a statistician. I am not even the most capable person at when it comes to understanding medical data, right? But my understanding, as it has been explained to me by people who do understand these things, is that some of the vaccines are going to be potentially as low as 42% effective, right? The Pfizer vaccine is very effective at keeping you from going to the hospital or potentially dying from COVID Delta variant, right? But not really all that effective, maybe only 42% effective at keeping you from contracting COVID. And people who, say, have an immune suppressed condition are still going to be 485 times more likely to come down with COVID post-vaccine than a person who is not immune suppressed and who is, vaccinated, right? So that's the Pfizer one, and then the other ones are more effective. The Moderna and the Johnson and Johnson do seem to be more effective, although those numbers may be like in the 60s. They're not incredible by any stretch. And by the same way that the Pfizer vaccine is effective in keeping people out of the hospital and keeping people from dying of COVID, so too are the Moderna and the Johnson and Johnson, right? That is my understanding of the data. But not for nothing, that puts us back in the realm where a lot of people with significant comorbidities and medical disabilities are going to say, well, 60% protection, or God help me, 42% protection from the disease isn't all that great. It's not the 90 or even 70 that we hoped for, right? And so now we're in a period of time, kind of a pocket of time in the universe between the vaccines and the upcoming boosters when the vaccines aren't so great. And all the people with really concerning comorbidities need to have conversations with their doctors about how at risk they are, right? Because not a doctor, not even that bright. You need to have this conversation with your doctor saying, hey, you know exactly what I'm diagnosed with. You know what we're dealing with here. Can I go back to work? Can I work in the workplace with a bunch of people who are not wearing masks and everything all going on, right? And if your doctor's answer is no, you can't go back to work, you need to have your doctor write a letter of accommodation saying, hey, my patient has a medical disability and is going to need a reasonable accommodation for further work from home. And then your employer will have to do a bit of a kind of thought process, a reasonable accommodation dialogue with you about here's what we can do, here's what we can't do, how can we make you safe. They owe that accommodation dialogue to you. They have to have it with you. And listen, they might try to argue, we can't have you work from home anymore. And in some cases, that will actually be true. In some cases, for some individuals, the accommodation they require will be viewed as not reasonable. Not that you're wrong for asking. You're not wrong for asking. This is your life. You have to be safe. But it's just something where maybe the law will say, listen, we can't ask the employer to do that much. It's going to hurt their business too much. It's going to cost them too much. It goes beyond what is reasonable, and that is the law, right? They have to grant you the accommodation if it is reasonable. So I did want to make this video just catching everyone up because the data drives the way the law plays out here, right? Getting work from home, because there's a 3% chance you might come down with a disease that probably won't kill you, that's probably not reasonable, right? We all kind of collectively as a society decided, hey, that's not reasonable. Go back to work. And then it turned out it wasn't a 3% chance. It turned out it was somewhere between a 40 and a 58% chance that you could still come down with COVID or something like that, right? Again, you can tell I'm not great with data. And well, that's probably not as reasonable. And if you're on top of that at risk, so that the concept, the argument, oh, well, at least it's not going to be a fatal disease because you have the vaccine, probably. But if your doctor says, but for you, that's not true. You have comorbidities. You have a disability, right? For you, that's different. And so we have to be safer. Well, at that point, I would argue work from home is, again, a reasonable accommodation. So I hope this helps. I hope this was very clear because this is such a complex topic and people are going to immediately jump and be like, oh, you're changing every 6 months. You're changing your advice. Yeah, the world's changing. The situation's changing. So the advice changes. That's how life works. Okay. But do post comments below with your questions. You're going to have questions. You might want to run through some hypotheticals with me. I will either make you videos or respond in text in the comments down below. Do like and subscribe. It helps me to help more people just like you. And stay safe out there, everybody. I don't want to lose any more viewers.